All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Monday, March 31st. We have a 14-game MLB slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. Talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays, so that I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3, 4 more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. In terms of yesterday, Sunday, we had a nice little 5-1 MLB day. Now, we're still rocking with quarter unit plays because it's so early in the year, but we've been on fire to start the season. So there's something, it's tempting me to, up the ante here. But again, we're still waiting for a lot of data to come in and whatnot. So I will be patient. But our only loss yesterday was Philly's money line, which I'm okay with. They're the better team. I even talked about some of my hesitation in yesterday's video, but nonetheless, we still rolled with it. But our winners, Athletics and Mariners first 5 under, Willie Adames under 1.5 bases, Spencer Steer under 1.5 bases, Guards and Royals under in the first 5, and the Red Sox and Rangers nerfy. We'll take another cha-ching. Overall, I mean, yeah, we've had what? Positive day, and then we had a middling day in the MLB, and then a couple positive days. So things are looking pretty good so far. Hopefully we can keep this momentum going for the rest of the season, because so far so good. But we know how this industry works and how this game works. So nonetheless, guys, we did have a positive night. Hopefully we can do that again tonight. Just no guarantees. But hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 here. By the way, before we do that, keep dropping your plays down below. I know we do the ride of the day in the NBA, and we're going to keep doing it in the NBA until the season's over, but we have been getting a ton of great plays down in the comments, and people tailing people in the comments and all that. So make sure you guys are letting other people know what you're rolling with if you are confident down in the comments. I've seen some bangers, some rocks I wouldn't even think to look under, bangers down in the comments. So keep doing that, guys. But like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into game number 1 here. We do have a potential play in this one, which is weird because it does involve the Chicago White Sox. Right now, White Sox coming off of a series in which they lose 2 of 3 against the Angels. Minnesota coming off of getting swept by St. Louis. I would say this is most likely a Minnesota spot. Yes, they're on the road here and still on the road, but they are the better team. Pitching, I guess you could make either argument. We have Chris Paddock on the mound for Minnesota going up against Martin Perez for the White Sox, but I think Minnesota's bats should be, I guess good to go in this spot if you do like that. But I wouldn't necessarily put all my trust in either Paddock or the Minnesota bats. What I would say is, let's fade the White Sox. They had that opening day game of 8 runs, but after that, their offense really didn't look all that great, right? 0 runs scored, 2 runs scored, and right now for -150, yes, it's a lot of juice, but we got to remember baseball numbers here. We're not in the NFL, we're not in the NBA. A little bit more juice is a little bit more digestible in the NBA and consumable, right? Under 3.5 for -154, Chicago's team total under is probably the only spot that I would go, but like I said, it could be a play. I like the idea here. 2 straight games they've gone under. If we look at Paddock's small sample size against the current guys on this Chicago roster, 26 plate appearances against, so again, super small sample size, a 35% K rate, 0% walk rate, average against of 154, but an expected batting average against jumps a little bit, but just a 178, expected slugging against of 206, WOBA of 135, and an ex-WOBA of 167. So maybe Paddock can come in here and deal, right? So I do like the idea of their team total under or their first 5 team total under overall as well, if that seems like it's a little bit more, I guess trustworthy in terms of just taking a peek at Paddock, right? I've also considered the idea of him just going under 1.5 in terms of his earned runs. The problem being is that last time he pitched against them, again, yes, he has good numbers against them, but last time he pitched against them last season, he did allow 2 runs through 5 innings. So don't necessarily love that. That was a high-scoring game for the White Sox. So everything I'm saying, yes, if you look at the recent history, maybe it's a little worrisome, but to me, I still think that Chicago struggles offensively today. Team total under, first 5 under, and then, like I said, Chris Paddock potentially looking at his under here in terms of his earned runs. But again, maybe I'm just too tunnel visioned on the White Sox offense stinking. All right, next up, we have Milwaukee taking on Kansas City. Kind of an interesting one here in terms of pitching. We have the starter for Milwaukee, looks like it's projected to be Elvin Rodriguez, but Hudson is their primary pitcher today. On the other side of things, we have Chris Bubic, who for the last, few years, actually most of his career has been, I guess for the last 2 years, right? 23 and 24, I would say. Last year specifically, a guy out of the pen for them. So kind of a reliever start game here, which is obviously makes things tough to judge, especially early on in the season. That's at least what we have early in the morning here, projected pitching. Early in the year, they've been flipping pitchers around and everything. So as of right now, that's what we have, right? Kansas City right now, I mean, this is essentially like a pick'em game. I've seen minus 115 on both sides, minus 105. You get minus 102 over on case for KC right now. I think that's the direction that I would go in. They're coming off of, losing. It was a 2 of 3 against Cleveland. They're the better team than Cleveland, really. So they should be a little fired up. Milwaukee coming off of a sweep, but against the Yankees. But everything I talked about when kind of talking about the Yankees in Milwaukee kind of stands. Like, I don't really know exactly what to get out of this offense from Milwaukee until I see it. Later on in the year, sure, maybe this is a spot in which, I start to trust that Milwaukee offense, much like we did it multiple times last year. But you do have Brian Hudson, who's going to throw the fastball, fastball, cutter, and slider. Not exactly the most dynamic pitch mix, right? So I'm not sitting here being like, oh, that's going to be scary. And you have Bubic, who has looked okay against the current roster that we have on Milwaukee. Your small sample size, but expected batting average against of 210, expected slugging under 250, and then an expected WOBA of 256, or 259, actually. So I'm just going to trust them because I think we have decent odds on their side. Minus 102 against a Milwaukee team that I do think could still continue to struggle to score runs. I will say there are angles to get to Milwaukee, so I don't want to just sit here and act like it's like Kansas City or nothing. It's like that's the side that I'm on. I see a little bit more potential and kind of a higher ceiling out of that offense just as of right now. Like, even though we didn't see crazy offense out of them in this first series, right? But Milwaukee, other than that 20-9 runaway game, like their offense really did struggle, and they struggled kind of to close out the year last year. So yeah, I'm just trusting the guys on Kansas City, but I don't want to really sit here and act like this is a dumb spot if you're on Milwaukee. They're at home. I get it. Some of these games are obviously home openers for specific teams, which obviously is a little bit of like an elevation in terms of the vibe. So makes a ton of sense. But to me, this is a Kansas City spot. I don't mind the over though. I know I just talked about, Milwaukee struggling and all of that. But what I will say is we don't know what we're going to get. And Milwaukee at home a year ago, better team than on the road, which shouldn't surprise anybody. And to me, if they can go out there and get 3 to 4 runs, I think we might be well on our way. I think Kansas City can put up like a 5 spot today, so we'll get pretty damn close. So yes, this is one where I like Kansas City. I like their offense obviously more than Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's offense struggles, but when I say struggle, I mean maybe like 4 runs, right? Like I just don't think they run away with it. So kind of a confusing one. If I confused you, I apologize, but just know Kansas City and the over is what I'm looking at. No player props as of right now, mainly because I just don't know what we're getting out of these pitchers. One thing we do know we're getting is a free square over on Underdog today. Luka, 0.5 points. Yes, we're talking baseball, but how could I not share this basketball free pick for new customers over on Underdog with you? Again, all Luka has to do is make one foul shot, make one layup, make 1 3, and he's going to cash the higher on this square. You throw it into your entry, it's obviously going to boost your payout. You're also going to get up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus when signing up with Underdog today. Use the link down in the description as well as the pinned comment. What I love about Underdog is literally the interface. It is so easy to use. There's no confusion. You pick higher or lower based on player set projections. In this case, higher than Luka, 0.5 points, right? And then you put multiple players into your lineup. The more you win, the more you do get paid out of that entry. So go ahead and check out Underdog. Again, you get this free pick as well as up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus. What are you waiting for? If it's available in your state and you have not signed up yet, race over there and do it. That link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. Make sure to use code GUYBOSTON when signing up. Enough basketball talk. Let's get back into these MLB games. Baltimore taking on Boston. As a Red Sox fan, they've now burned me a couple times, right? Laid off them yesterday. We did roll with the Nerfy, so I guess they helped us out there, right? Dick Fitz got out of that inning, and so did DeGrom. I just don't know if I fully trust them here. I think this total is kind of spot on. I was thinking an over spot, but potentially a Baltimore team total over. We have Sean Newcomb on the mound for the Red Sox going up against Cade Povich. I do think Cade Povich is going to have a decent season this year. So I guess by default, I think they have the pitching advantage. The Red Sox, I want to sit here and say have the offensive advantage. We have not seen it yet, and Cade Povich is a left-handed pitcher, right? So the Red Sox, I expect them to crush righties this year, not necessarily lefties, and Povich does have just under 40 plate appearances against, 237 average against this Red Sox team, 2.5 walk rate, 20% K rate, which isn't that high, but obviously, in terms of K to walk, that's pretty good. Expected batting average at 250, expected WOBA at 288, expected slugging 399, not all that bad, right? I think that he's obviously going to get better and better as well. So I expect him to have a decent game, not a phenomenal game. That's why I still don't mind the idea of like a potential over, because at some point this Red Sox lineup is going to click. You have Bregman, Story, Devers, like these guys are going to click at some point, right? With Willie Abreu, I don't know if he's in the lineup today, but nonetheless, you have these guys that I think should step it up. We just haven't really seen it yet. But overall, I guess I'm going to lean towards Baltimore on the money line. Kind of pains me to do so as the Red Sox fan and holding a Red Sox win total over futures ticket. But minus 142, I could see having some decent value. Maybe even just in the first five, because then at least we're pitting Povich versus Newcomb against, one another, and that seems like there might be an advantage. But I will say, what if I'm just off about Povich having a good season, right? It's not like he was phenomenal a year ago. He was better at home, which this is their home opener, but overall, I could be totally wrong about that. We've seen Newcomb kind of, I guess, come out of the bullpen for the Athletics in years past, right? And I think, who was he with before that? I forget, Chicago and then maybe Atlanta. But I don't really think there's anything special about him, but he definitely has more seasons under his belt than Povich. So hoping I'm not all twisted on this one. Give me the Orioles here on the money line, as well as a team total over for them. In terms of what we have from player props, the only one that we really stumbled upon this morning, let's see if I can pull it back up because it is not at the top of my head, which should tell you how confident I am in it. Where is it at? Oh, Rob Refsnyder here. I don't mind his under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Making his season debut, so obviously he's going to be a little, cold. He doesn't have the best numbers against the Orioles, and against this pitch mix, I don't necessarily mind it. Now, he's going to hit the fastball okay, not necessarily the curveball. His curveball strike, which that is Povich's next pitch, he strikes out 43% of the time. The slider he struggles against, so everything outside of that fastball, which I will admit he does hit pretty damn well, he should struggle against here. He's batting 3 for 6 against the Cade Povich here with 1 home run, 2 RBIs, so if you see that and you're like, maybe I shouldn't roll with this one, I get it. But again, this is not the biggest power hitter. He should be what I would consider potentially cold heading into the lineup for the first time. We've seen a lot of these Red Sox players kind of start slow. I'm thinking he does today as well. And you're getting decent value. Under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs for minus 115. You want to go with total bases? I don't mind that either, but I think you're going to be paying like minus 165, maybe minus 170, depending on the time you look at it. So hits, runs, and RBIs is probably what I ultimately end up looking at here. But again, maybe I'm putting a little too much weight into Cade Povich having a good season. Maybe, right? We don't have much to go off of this year. All right, Philadelphia taking on Colorado. Quite simply, I like Philadelphia. I would say, obviously, just due to the fact that, they're the better team in Colorado. They're coming off a loss, which in this case, I think might help them want to kind of step it up. In terms of what we have from pitching, 4 pitchers today. We have Chris Sanchez, who was dominant at home last year. A little dicey when he was on the road, but absolutely dominant. Going up against German Marquez, who, we don't have too much to go off here, but he has tons of, I guess we do have enough to go off of. What I mean by that is I don't think there's enough to back him or anything like that. He has tons of sample size, plate appearances against this Phillies roster, and they've crushed him. So I'm looking at this saying maybe a Phillies first 5 team total over, maybe a Phillies team total over in general, because I'm not touching them on the run line. I think that, you could, but the run lines to start the year, we don't know exactly what we're getting. But right now, over 4.5 runs, I don't necessarily mind. But like I said, in the first 5 might be where you get the most bang for your buck. For minus 115, over 2.5 runs. They've yet to do that, but now they're going up against a guy that they've kind of crushed in the past. Could be something that I consider. I also don't mind the idea of a over in general. I think if the Phillies put up, 5 runs today, then maybe the Rockies could squeak out, 3 or potentially 4. I mean, look at what Washington did, and I would put Washington, they're not a very good team, right? But they scored, 3, 6, and 5 runs. Like, if Colorado can get to those numbers, even 3, I think that we could be well on our way to an over. So I'd lean in that direction, but it's tough with the odds. You really, like I said, that first five's only the only thing that I see being having a little bit of value. But even still, having to score 3 runs just to cash in over this early in the year in the first 5, a little bit dicey. And we've seen Philly kind of struggle in the beginning of the year. Like I said, they haven't even hit that yet. So for what it's worth, take it with a grain of salt. Early in the MLB season, we don't have much data to back it, but like I said, Chris Sanchez, really, really good at home. They're decent, at hitting righties. I think lefties was kind of what they were better at yet last year, but we're going to get a ton of fastballs, a ton of sliders from Marquez, which is both of those pitches Phillies should be salivating over. All right, Miami taking on the Mets. Now, the Mets are heavily favored, and I think that that's fair. They had a tough series opener, I guess, and now they're still on the road, but they lose 2 of 3 against Houston, and their offense has looked terrible. In that game, they scored a combined, I think it was in that series, Houston and the Mets, who people would say have some good bats in both those teams, right? They scored a combined, I think it's 11, but 10 or 11 runs between the two teams. So New York's offense is logjam right now. Miami went out there, scored 5-3, 5-3. They took 3 of 4 against Pittsburgh. So I guess kudos to them. Ultimately, this is a number that is a little bit too high for me to even consider the Mets, right, at -185. But I do think we could see some runs today. We have Cal Quantrill on the mound for this Miami team. David Peterson on the mound for New York. I don't want to sit here and fully trust him either, but I do think that that's a slight pitching advantage. Cal Quantrill had some really bad numbers just a year ago. The Mets, I think, Lindor, Soto, a couple other guys in the lineup, at least last year, hit righties really well. He's going to throw a sinker, splitter, cutter. None of that really scares me in terms of the Mets hitting it either. So yes, we're probably pivoting towards a Mets team total over 3.5, unless it's too juiced. And I think it might be. If you can get 4.5, I would want either even money or plus money, which I'm not sure we're going to get today just because of the pitcher on the other side. But that is sort of the direction that I would look at. Cal Quantrill hits should also be something that I'm considering, which I think it's plus money for over 4.5. Definitely something that's kind of on my dock today. Over 3.5 for -160 would also be something that I'd consider. He had over 4.5 hits in all of his starts last year, or excuse me, 22 of 29 starts, almost all of his starts. And of those 7 that he didn't, 6 of them he landed on 3. So I think we should be in a decent spot for him to have at least 4 hits against him. My one concern is, are they going to keep him in there, right? If he gets shelled, hopefully it's, 4 hits later, but they could go to, again, it's early in the year. Taking these hits props against pitchers could be a little dicey because so early in the year, what if he goes out there and, looks bad through 2 innings, 2 home runs, first 2 pitches, some Nestor Cortez stuff, right? That's only, 2 or 3 hits, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, let's yank him. He doesn't have it today. 3.5 is pretty low. Feel fairly confident in that, but overall, it's not like this Mets offense has looked kind of great, right? So let's keep that in mind as well. But that's probably the only way that I would kind of pivot and kind of beat around the bush to get to the result we want, which is a big thing in baseball, right? There's so many analytics and data points out there that, yes, I like the Mets today. Yes, I like them to score a lot of runs, but we don't have much value in terms of odds. How will they score that? Oh, getting hits off of the pitcher. Boom, we've now kind of pivoted to a spot that we can kind of get what we like without having to pay all the juice that we would be paying over there. Like I said, 4.5 is plus money if you do want to pay the juice, which I'm happy to do in baseball, especially if I find value in the play. But, -165 is kind of the end of the line there. In terms of a total, I guess it's all kind of related to what we just said. Mets team total over is what I'd look at. Maybe an over just in general, because like I said, David Peterson on the other side, it's not like I'm sitting here being like, David Peterson's the go and all that. And no. I think that we could see the Marlins put up, 4 runs too. So maybe the over is in play here. So Cal Quantrill over and hits allowed, as well as the over, probably 2 plays that I'd consider. I wish I had an angle to get to the Mets better, but I have angles, but the price we're paying is just a little bit too high for me, especially this early in the year. All right, Reds taking on Texas. So Texas had a decent series there against the Red Sox, right? I will say that, as a Red Sox fan, tough to see they lose that game 1. I was thinking, or the Red Sox win, but Texas loses the game 1. I was like, all right, here we go, Red Sox. 4-1, 4-3, 3-2, all close games, but ultimately Texas pulls them out. Cincinnati coming off of a series against San Fran that was a pretty good series, ultimately didn't go in their favor. Now we have newcomer Brady Singer on the mound for Cincinnati. I kind of like the spot for him today. Based on his pitch mix, he's going to throw a lot of sliders and sinkers. Those are 2 pitches that Texas does not really hit all that well. His third pitch is actually the fastball. Texas doesn't hit that very well. On the other end of things, you're going to get Kumar Rocker, who's pitching for Texas. He throws a ton of fastballs. That's either his first or second pitch. You mix that up with the slider, right? This is a Cincinnati team that hits that very well. The slider, not so much, but his third pitch being the sinker, Cincinnati hits the sinker pretty damn well as well. So we did it last year. We've kind of looked at it this year. It hasn't been we haven't really rolled with it this year. But when Cincinnati plays, especially at home in Great American Ballpark, they play against a pitcher that throws a ton of fastballs. I don't mind runs. I think that they'll put up a decent amount of runs. This total's at 9. I'd probably buy it down to 8.5 because I could totally see a 5-4 game, which would be push here. But obviously, if you're okay with the push, then sure. But I kind of like Cincinnati in this spot. Texas goes from home to now Cincinnati. Cincinnati's still at home here. I like the idea of them kind of now settling in with Brady Singer, who I do think I really like that acquisition. I think they get the train back on the tracks here. So give me them as the underdog. I also, like I said, don't mind an over in this spot. And then some player props I would consider, just don't have any as of right now. So if I do add any player props, like I always tell you guys, they will be in the final plays with the pinned comment, right? Sending you over to GuyBostonSports.com. If I add anything we don't talk about in the video, I'll make sure to give a little blurb or reasoning and rationale as to why I rolled with that, just so you guys have the context. All right, we have Drew Rasmussen and the Rays going up against Carmen Mlodzinski. Don't know if I'm saying that right. And the Pirates, two offenses that I think are obviously not exactly fully in check here. I mean, Tampa Bay, their offense looked okay in that last game against Colorado, but 2 straight games, was it 3 runs and 1 run? Sure, they go and score 6 yesterday, whatever. Pittsburgh scored 4-4-4-2, so it's kind of just like middle of the pack. We haven't seen much explosion out of either squad. If you want to say Tampa Bay scoring 6 runs, I get it. But overall, not that I'm fully, backing these pitchers. They don't have the worst of numbers. Rasmussen last year and then Mlodzinski last year as well. But the offenses are really what is kind of killing me here. And if we jump into the dashboard, and in fact, I'll show you guys how to get access to this dashboard in just a little bit. It's over on the Guy Boston Sports site. But if we do take a peek at this, fastball, sinker, fastball, slider are the 2 things we're looking at. Yes, the cutter as well. Pittsburgh gets the cutter well. I'm choosing to ignore that just for this explanation right now. But the fastball, right? The 2 main pitches. Right here, Tampa Bay struggles against the fastball. The slider, they really struggle against the slider. Drew Rasmussen, fastball, sinker, cutter. Pittsburgh hits well, but again, Pittsburgh really, when I say hits them well, it's like the only thing they do well. Against righties last year, they were really, really tough. Righties on the road, really, really tough. But the fastball, bottom half of the league, and then the sinker, bottom 5 in the league here as well. So I think both of these pitchers could be in for a decent game. I would say under is what I'd be looking at. This is a game total of 8. We do look at, actually, what's funny is in the top right of your screen now, you'll see the Pittsburgh lineup. These are their batting averages last year against righties. Like, they look like they should be able to hit righties, but, there are a few new names there. But overall, I still don't necessarily trust it. Like, this is a team that against righties a year ago were ranking in the bottom 3, bottom 5 of the league, right? So what I'm going to pivot towards is a look at the first 5 under. Right now, that seems like it's a fair play overall. And again, it's not necessarily like I'm like, hey, go Mlodzinski, go Rasmussen, like I trust you guys. It really is what I just talked about, a look at both of those offenses, which should to some degree elevate the pitchers, right? And right now you can get under 4.5 for -112, some really decent value. Most other books, it's at -120, -130. So over on FanDuel, actually, if you do have 365, you can get -105. But FanDuel's probably what we're gonna look at, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is a final play as you guys are checking the final plays today. So yeah, under first 5, under 4.5 as the total is going to be something that I definitely consider today. I just don't really trust either one of these offense. But I had mentioned getting access to that dashboard. The way you do that is over on GuyBostonSports.com. You can see the website right here. I'm signed in, but you can hover over the members area and you have 2 dashboard options right now. You can just go to members and you'll obviously get there as well. But the MLB dashboard is in the navigation for your convenience. And you'll see I'm logged in. It takes me right to the dashboard. I can open it up. I can scroll down. You get a visual kind of breakdown of each and every game, all the data that we have from last year. And this will be updated in, I would say, a week's time. It gets updated every day with the matchups and whatnot. But I mean, the data, we'll start to use 2025 data fairly soon. But right now, obviously, it's working for us. We're still sticking to last year's data and kind of what we're picking up this season. But overall, you can get the sense, right? Green is good. Red is bad. We have pitch mix stats. We have batters against that hand stats in terms of batting average and where they bat from, too. So especially we can see, okay, David Peterson, really good against lefties, right? Very good against lefties. Well, there's only one lefty projected starter in the lineup today, and it's Stowers. So it's not even like that lefty would be relevant. He struggles against righties. Okay, well, there's a ton of righties in that Miami lineup. So very useful stuff. We have bullpen data as well. Guys, if you're not logged in or don't have an account, this is what you'll see when you click that MLB dashboard. So this is set up to show without access. It's going to say membership required. If you're interested in the NBA and MLB, we do have a membership for that as well. You get all the sports, so we got really creative with the name. The All Sports Dashboard, $6.99 a month. If you just want MLB, $4.99 a month. And if you just want NBA, $2.99 per month. You get access to both of those dashboards independently, but if you have the All Sports, you get both of them. So yeah, a lot of rambling there, but go ahead and check it out, guys. GuyBossSports.com. Consider becoming a member today if that does interest you. So I know I talked about the first 5 under in this game. I guess in terms of a side, like I said, I don't really want to trust either pitcher or either offense, but there were a couple nuggets that we discussed. The lineup against righties looks okay for the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? And you throw in the fact that that cutter is a pitch that Drew Rasmussen likes to throw. I guess I would lean towards the Pirates on the money line. If we weren't getting a really, decent number behind them, I wouldn't like it that much, but plus 170 kind of actually is irking my interest today. So maybe we see a Pittsburgh money line and a first 5 under. But overall, I do think the first 5 under is probably something I'm a little bit more interested in. But I don't think that I really have much just cause to get to Tampa Bay today. You know what I mean? Especially at that price tag. Real quick, another spot I like, I failed to mention it, but I don't mind the Nerfy in that game. Again, kind of fading both offenses. Give me 6 outs. 3 from Ladinsky and 3 from Rasmussen. We'll be well on our way. So a Nerfy also something that I am considering today as well. In fact, you might see both Nerfy and the first 5 under in this one. So yeah, hopefully they don't score, 5 runs in the first inning and lose both those. But we'll see. Keep an eye on the pin comment in the final plays. All right, moving on to Toronto taking on Washington. Now, Toronto's heavily favored in this one at minus 160. I think that is very fair. Their offense didn't look all that terrible. I mean, they had a couple good games against Baltimore. They split the series against them. And I would say they have the pitching advantage today. Soroka on the mound for Washington. Last season, 4.75 ERA. Didn't really have all that great of numbers. Going up against Bowden Francis, who honestly had I don't want to say sneaky good season, but a good enough season is the way that I would put it. He's also going to throw a ton of fastballs, which is a pitch that Washington really struggles against. He then goes to the curve and splitter, 2 pitches that Washington struggles against. Overall, there's going to be a bunch of sliders. That's Michael Soroka's number 1 pitch. Toronto just a year ago, top 606 in the league in terms of runs above average against the sliders. So yeah, I like this spot for Toronto. I don't know if I really want to justify looking at them, minus 160, but maybe if we look at them on the first 5 run line, which is, if you guys don't know the difference between first 5 money line and first 5 run line, first 5 money line, if it's tied after the first 5, it's a push. If you look at the first 5 run line, it's going to be minus 0.5, meaning that they have to win that, right? And that's the way you can get some value. The 2 games they won against Baltimore, and I expect them to win today, keep that in mind. The 2 games they won, they were winning after the first 5, so they got out there early, right? So minus 0.5 in the first 5 could be a look for Toronto. I think they have the better pitcher, and I like their offense here as well, and they're the home team, right? So they're again, kind of like we talked about Cincinnati, they're settled in and kind of just sitting there at home. So that's probably how I'd look at it. I don't think that I mind the idea of a Toronto team total over. Like I said, they definitely had a couple good offensive games, but there were some times where it was like, where's the offense? That I expect to change today, like I've mentioned. So if you like over 3.5 and you can get good value for that, maybe that's the spot. I'm not trusting Washington today, so I don't want to look at the full game total there, but maybe a Toronto team total over could be in the works as well. In terms of what we have from a player prop spot here, I will say that this is a game that I kind of spent probably too much time on, so we have a couple player props to throw your way. It's just a matter of the confidence level of us rolling with it. We'll see. So that's where the keeping an eye on the pinned comment's going to come in. But Jimenez over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. I like that. I also like Bowden Francis under 1.5 walks. He was great to this line just a year ago. So I think that could be a decent spot for him. Overall, I don't mind his Ks either. He was great a year ago to that line. So those are 3 props there. And then there was one under that. Cruz here on Washington. I don't mind his under 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Yet to get there this season. And Bowden Francis batting average against right-handed batters, which he is, 194 against a year ago. He's going to throw, again, a ton of fastballs. I kind of like that spot here. He throws his fastball up in the zone. I think he should be able to get it past Cruz. So, yeah, for some juice, that could be a decent play. So, yeah, decent amount of player props that we're liking in this one. Because we're conservative earlier on the year, I don't think we're going to end up rolling with all of them, but you could see a few of those player props in there. St. Louis taking on the Angels. Now, I'm not, that big on the Cards this year. I think this might be an overspot. We have Tyler Anderson in the mound for the Angels, which I've talked about in years past, not exactly a fan of. And then Miles Mikolas on the mound for St. Louis. also not the biggest fan of him. So this is a weird one because I'm not sitting here telling you that either one of these offenses is all that tremendous. I will say the last 10 times they've played, 7 of those games went over. Now we're talking dating back to like 2020, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But though I didn't see the Angels offense pop off against Chicago, and though we kind of saw some pop off of St. Louis against Minnesota, I don't necessarily trust that either one of these offenses is going to be a force this year. But those pitchers and this total sitting at 8, I kind of like the idea of an over. I would also, if I had to pick a side here, and I guess for the sake of the video we do, I'm going to lean towards St. Louis here at home. I like Michaelis a little bit more than I do Anderson, and I think that he's got a better offense behind him. Not by too much, but definitely I would say a better offense behind him. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards St. Louis, but I kind of like the idea of an over. And then no player props that I have in this one just yet. All right, Houston taking on San Fran. This one's a little weird to me. Kind of smells a bit like a trap here. We have Jordan Hicks on the side of things for San Francisco going up against Ronel Blanco for this Astros team. Blanco had a decent season last year, right? Some very good games from him. And I would say Houston has the better offense. I mean, you look at San Fran, and it's like, oh, but they scored 6 and 6 runs, so 6 twice in that 3-game series against Cincinnati. They were playing in Great American Ballpark. It's a lot easier to score runs in that ballpark. Not saying Houston is a place in which they can't score runs, but now you have Houston, who has already played a full series at home. They won that series. They have San Fran, who I don't think is all that good coming into town, and you're getting them at -125, and I do think they have a bullpen advantage as well. So Houston money line, definitely a spot that I'm looking at here today. In terms of what we have from a total, I would say team total over for Houston. I mean, it's sitting at 8, right, as of right now. But if we get their team total, I think we can get their team total over. What did I see earlier this morning? Their team total over 3.5 was, let's see, to get them to 4 runs, yeah, -135. I don't think that's bad either. So, yeah, this is kind of Houston all the way for me. But, again, maybe I feel like I'm missing something here. Maybe I just am missing something here because I think Houston should be like -140. We're getting them from -125. In fact, updated odds on that because we took that screenshot a while ago. -122. 3 more cents of value in our pocket. So, I don't know what's happening here. I like Houston in this spot. I think San Fran's run scoring and their offensive production was a lot more of the product of the situation versus the team that we saw, in that first series. Seattle taking on Detroit. Seattle, like we've been saying, and we've kind of been saying the same exact thing for, 2 years now? They are a team that, will pitch well but not score many runs, and we saw them, split with the A's starting the season, and not more than 6 runs were scored in any of those games. Detroit, on the other hand, played against LA. They lost all 3 games, but their offense actually looked okay, and they let up a decent amount of runs. But when I say let up a decent amount of runs, we have to factor in that it's not like they let up the runs. LA scored the runs, right? So I think in this one, I would pivot towards a first 5 under. I think you're going to see that, at least until we're proven otherwise, I should say, but we're going to see a pretty decent theme in terms of Mariners games and looking at the first 5 under. So under 4.5 right now for -140, definitely something of consideration to me. I haven't even talked about the pitchers yet, but overall we have Job on the mound for Detroit and Emerson Hancock on the mound for Seattle. Again, I didn't mention the pitchers until like halfway through this breakdown because this is realistically a play on the offenses, not necessarily the pitching. In terms of what we will see is a ton of fastballs from Job, which is like the one pitch that Seattle hits well, so that scares me a little bit. But on the other side of things, this Detroit offense has looked okay, but Emerson Hancock, fastball, sinker, changeup, slider, none of those pitches at all. Maybe you can make the argument slider, but none of those pitches in 2024 the Tigers hit very well. So I think that he should have at least a good enough spot to kind of stand on business here. You can make the argument that this works for batters. I like to make the argument that it works for pitchers. Neither one of these pitchers has pitched against anybody on either team so far. So they have not seen his stuff, which, again, we're getting a fastball from Job, so it's not like that's going to be the hardest thing to pick up. But in terms of sinker, slider, changeup from Hancock, I think he could have a really good game over there as well. Now, as I say it, we didn't have this one prepped, but I'm kind of liking the idea of Emerson Hancock to have under 2.5 earned runs. That might be something to consider as well. So yeah, I like the first 5 under, as well as Emerson Hancock under 2.5 earned runs against this Detroit team. Didn't pick a side yet. I would probably trust Hancock, so I'm going to lean towards Seattle on the money line as well. All right, San Diego taking on Cleveland. We have Kyle Hart on the mound, who has been in the minors for a long time. He came up once with the Red Sox, if my numbers are correct here, back in 2020, started 3 games. 3.09 whip, an ERA of 15.5, so nothing really to brag about there. Going up against Luis Ortiz, who has been around, has obviously more experience. We can't really deny that, but he does have nearly 60 plate appearances in terms of his history against the San Diego roster, and they've hit him up. Expected batting average of nearly 330, slugging 530, expected WOBA just under 400, excuse me, and he's going to pitch from the right side, and that's a spot which San Diego does do some damage, right? So I think this might be a spot that we're getting a good price on San Diego because of their pitcher. But this is a team that just 4 games swept Atlanta. Like they're meaning business right now. I don't think Cleveland is all that great. Their offense looked good in those 2 wins against Kansas City, but I'm almost willing to say, hey, I think that this is a San Diego spot, like overall. And again, we're getting a really good number just due to the fact that we have a historically bad pitcher on the mound for them, but he earned that spot over, I forget who he beat out as the 5th spot. So yeah, why not trust the kid, right? Give me San Diego. If we don't want to necessarily trust their pitching, we're going to do the old Ev Faithful sort of pivot, right? And look at San Diego's team total over 3.5. I do like that spot. We're going to get a bunch of different pitches out of Ortiz. Fastball, San Diego hits great. Slider, they're number 1 in terms of runs above average last season. Sinker, okay, they struggle against, but then the cutter, they're kind of indifferent. And so 2 of those top pitches, which are the 2 main pitches, that's going to make up over 53% of his pitches. They should be crushing. Guys against righties, we can even use the dashboard. We don't have data from last year on Hart, but anyways, the guys that, are going to be crushing the right-hander are all the guys at the top of the lineup. He struggles against righties, so Tatis, Machado, even Bogarts down here, we could really see some production out of. So though I don't have any specific player props to share in those spots right now, don't be surprised if you see like an added Machado, Bogarts, or even Tatis Jr. player prop type spot down there, like hits, runs, and RBIs or something like that. That's definitely in consideration. So yeah, San Diego team total over, that kind of hybridizes the money line and the total, and then those player props, definitely keep an eye out for those. I think that's a decent spot for them overall. Cleveland's bullpen's pretty good, obviously, so maybe, San Diego struggles late in the game, but I'm thinking that they get to Ortiz and maybe only need like 1 run late in the game, which is doable, right? Oakland taking on the Cubs. On the mound for Oakland, we have Estes going up against Ben Brown. Ben Brown didn't have the worst season last year, and he's going to throw a ton of fastballs, which is not a great pitch for Oakland. So this is another one where I kind of sit here and I'm like, am I missing something? Like, much like Houston, and it is the early season, I could easily be missing something in my data, but getting the Cubs for in the minus 120s seems like it's the no-brainer to me. I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, Oakland, and I shouldn't even say Oakland, Athletics, the Sacramento Athletics, but technically not the Sacramento Athletics. They looked okay against Seattle, right? They won 2 of the 4 games. Chicago won 2 of the 4 against Arizona. I think that's a little bit more of a feat than what the Athletics did. So yeah, kind of puzzled on why the line is where it is, but I'm going to lean towards the Cubs money line. I think you could easily see a Houston and a Chicago play on my ticket today. In terms of a total, seems like a pretty damn good line, because I would say this is like a 5-4 game. So I guess I'll slightly lean towards the over, but 5-3 also makes sense to me. 4-3, which would be under. So I could see this being right around like a 5-4 game. So I'm going to lean towards the over and kind of trust that. And then no major player props that I'm liking in this one either. All right, Tyler Glass now in the Dodgers taking on Grant Holmes and the Braves. Dodgers offense is scary. Is what it is, minus 220. I get why it's there. The total's at 8 though, so I mean, one thing that I would say is, why don't we just look at, Dodgers team total over, if anything. Grant Holmes, very, very small sample size against this squad, but does not have the best of numbers here. But obviously, I think we'll see how much we're going to get even out of him, right? Like in terms of innings pitched. So yeah, Dodgers team total over 4.5. They've hit that in all their games this year, and it's minus 118. So that's probably what I would lean towards, and that's kind of the only thing I have as of right now. So yeah, kind of a quick one for that game. But like I said, when the Colorado Rockies or White Sox are playing teams, or the Dodgers are playing teams, we're going to have some quick breakdowns, because it's like, yeah, they're really, really good, and there's no value lines out there in my opinion. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and comment 39, a long MLB video today, but I feel like we had a lot of good stuff to talk about. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.